Welcome to Thomas Machine and Foundry, home of Fraser Marine Products. Today we're going to walk you through how we make zinc anodes, one of the products in our Fraser Marine line, using a traditional hand molding process called loose mold casting. Here you can see our molder Chad laying out 6 individual loose pattern pieces on a flat board, spacing them evenly so we can fit a special riser, called a thermal riser, between each one. We'll explain what that does in a moment. In the bottom left of the screen, you can also see our induction furnace, where a pot of pure zinc is being melted down. Chad lifts his mold box, cleans out any loose sand from underneath it, and then uses a tool called a riddle, basically a fine mesh screen, to sift fresh, clean sand directly over his pattern. This gives us the best possible surface quality for the finished parts. He then fills the mold box with more sand and uses a pneumatic rammer, an air-powered compacting tool, to pack the sand tightly around the patterns. He repeats this several times to make sure the mold is firm and solid. Our foundry uses what's called green sand molding. Despite the name, the sand isn't really green in color. It's a mixture of sand, clay, and water that forms a strong, dense, and reusable mold material. It's been the standard in foundry work for generations. Chad scrapes the top of the mold flat to create a smooth surface, then places a bottom board on top and flips the entire mold upside down. He removes the top half of the mold box, called the cope, and lifts away the pattern board underneath. He sets the cope back down on the alignment pins and applies a fine parting compound, similar to a release agent, along the mold seam. This prevents the top and bottom halves of the mold from sticking together when it's time to separate them later. Chad then positions thermal risers over the mold. A thermal riser is an insulated cup-shaped sleeve that holds a small reservoir of molten metal above each part. As the casting below cools and shrinks, that liquid metal feeds down to fill any voids, preventing shrink defects in the finished part. Chad covers each thermal riser with a plug to keep loose sand out, then uses the riddle again to screen fresh sand over the entire cope. He hand tucks around each riser to hold them securely in place before ramming the cope the same way he did the bottom half. After several passes with the rammer, Chad smooths the top of the cope flat, then removes the 4 plugs from the tops of the thermal risers. He scrapes and pats the surface smooth one final time, cleans around each riser opening to remove any loose sand, and blows the entire mold surface clean with compressed air. Chad then cuts what's called a sprue, a funnel-shaped opening that molten metal will be poured into. He uses a large sprue cutter to form a wide funnel shape, then blows it clean. Using the overhead crane, Chad carefully lifts the cope straight up off the drag, the bottom half of the mold. The parting compound allows the two halves to separate cleanly. He applies additional parting compound and inspects the surface, cleaning up any small imperfections by hand. Chad cuts a small taper channel at the base of the sprue to help the metal flow smoothly into the mold. He then blows the cope clean from the top to the bottom and does the final inspection before setting it aside. He then blows and inspects the drag as well, moving it into position on the pouring bench. Now, Chad hand carves the gating system directly into the drag. He carves a large horseshoe-shaped channel, called a runner, that connects all 6 part cavities. This is the path that the molten metal will travel to reach each part. He smooths the runner carefully so that metal flows as evenly as possible. Using a curved carving spoon, he hand cuts 6 individual gates, the small openings that allow metal to enter each individual part cavity. This type of hand carving is a skill that's increasingly rare in modern foundries. Chad carefully checks the depth and the width of each gate to make sure that every part will fill completely and evenly. He blows the mold clean and prepares to extract the loose pattern pieces from the drag. Chad inserts a threaded lifting tool into each loose pattern and uses a small wrench to tap it free from the sand. He then gently draws each pattern straight up from the mold, leaving behind a clean cavity that will fill with molten zinc during the pour. He repeats this process for all 6 loose pieces. In higher volume production, loose pieces like this are permanently mounted to a board with the gating and runners built in, making the process faster and more repeatable. Loose pattern molding like this is typically reserved for low volume or specialty jobs. As Chad removes one of the patterns, a small piece of sand breaks away from the mold wall. That cavity is now unusable. It illustrates one of the key risks in loose pattern molding. Care and precision are essential at every step. Chad now smooths all of the hand-carved gates and runners, removing any sharp ridges or excess sand. He then uses a small pneumatic vacuum to remove every last loose grain. Even a single loose sand particle can be swept into the molten metal stream, causing a void or rough spot in the finished casting. This can create an imperfection in the final part, or can create an irregular surface finish, which is unacceptable for these precision components. Chad's thoroughness here reflects the level and care we put into every mold we make. With the drag ready, Chad brings his cope in on the crane and carefully lowers it down onto the drag, using the guide pins to align both halves precisely. He first removes the crane, then releases his flask clamps. He then removes the flask from the mold. Finally, he places a metal jacket around the outside of the assembled mold. This clamps the two halves together, keeping them aligned as the mold travels to the pouring station. Here we have Randy and Jeffrey preparing to pour. This is our induction furnace with a crucible of molten zinc. Randy skims the surface of the molten zinc to remove any impurities or dross floating on top. Jeffrey brings in the overhead crane and attaches it to the pouring bale, the lifting and tilting device that holds the crucible. They slowly lift the crucible off the ground. Randy taps the bale to confirm that the crucible is properly seated and checks that the tilt lock is engaged. He then places the retaining clamp on the crucible to lock it in. Together, they use the crane to carry it to the first mold and prepare to pour. Randy releases the tilt lock and slowly tips the crucible. Molten zinc flows down through the sprue, into the runners, through the gates, and begins filling each of the 6-part cavities. Within moments, you can see metal rising up through the thermal risers at the top. Here you can see the risers filling to the brim, a sign that the parts below are fully filled. They move down the line and pour each remaining mold. After about 15 minutes, the zinc has solidified. Here, our team member Mitch breaks open the mold and lifts the casting out of the sand. He knocks away the loose sand and taps the runner bar to free any remaining sand from around the parts. Here you can see the finished product, 6 zinc anodes, freshly cast and still connected to the runner system. This process repeats for each remaining mold. All of this work goes into parts that are by design sacrificial. Zinc anodes are attached to boats and marine equipment to attract and absorb galvanic corrosion, a chemical process that occurs in salt water, so that your vessel's hull and components are protected instead. If we put this much care into a part that is meant to be consumed, imagine what we do for parts that are meant to last a lifetime. This is how it's made at Thomas Machine and Foundry.